The Datapad by Andre Michael Pietroschek. A modernized attempt to finish the unfinished story, the book by H.P. Lovecraft. Welcome back, everybody. Today is a special treat as we got a retelling of an old story. Or perhaps this was the original in some far-off dimension or time that had already existed millions or thousands of years ago, and possibly at the same time. Well, think about that. Now, I want you to sit back, clear your mind, and enjoy the tale. From the Diary of Kyle Rice, Arkham, Massachusetts, October 2023. My memories are very distorted. There is even much doubt as to where they begin, for at times I feel appalling vistas of years stretching behind me, while at other times it seems as if the present moment were an isolated point in a gray, formless infinity. I'm not even certain how I am communicating this message. While I know I am speaking, I have a vague impression that some nerves and perhaps mental fortitude may be needed to handle what I say to the aspects where I wish to be understood. My identity, too, is bewilderingly cloudy. I seem to have suffered a great shock, perhaps from some utterly monstrous outgrowth of my cycles of unique, incredible experience. These cycles of experience, of course, all stem from that accursed Datapad. I remember when I found it in a dimly lighted pawn shop near the dreaded river where the mists always swirl. That place was very antiquated, and the sales area seemed barely maintained. There were formless heaps of datapads on the shelf and on crude pedestals, and it was on one of these pedestals that I found the thing. I never learned its brand, for it did not allow itself to be spied on, and it gave me a glimpse of something that did send my senses reeling when I first flipped it open and pressed the power on button. It was the real thing, and it meant business. There was a graphical formula, a sort of list of things to say and do, which I recognized as something alien and forbidden, something that I had read of before in furtive paragraphs of mixed abhorrence and fascination for urban legends, penned by those strange subculture delves into the universe's guarded secrets, whose decaying texts I love to absorb. It was a key, a guide to certain gateways and transitions of which urban mystics have dreamed and whispered since the human race was young, and which led to freedoms and discoveries beyond the three dimensions and realms of life and matter that we are all allowed to know. But this Datapad was emanating importance indeed. I remember how the old man leered and tittered and made a curious sign with his hand when I bore it away. He had refused to charge payment for it, and only long afterward did I realize why. As I hurried home through those narrow, winding, mist-choked waterfront streets, I had a frightful impression of being stalked by stealthy feet. The centuries-old, tottering houses on both sides seemed alive with a fresh and morbid malignity, as if some hitherto closed channel of evil foreboding had abruptly been opened. I felt that those walls and overhanging gables of mildewed brick and fungus plaster and timber, with fishy, eye-like, diamond-paned windows that leered, could hardly desist from advancing and crushing me. Yet I had read only the least fragment of that blasphemous text before closing the Datapad and carrying it away. I also remember how I read the Datapad while charging its battery, pale-faced and locked in the attic room that I had long devoted to my strange and occult adventures. The great house was very still, for I had not gone up till after midnight. I think I had a family then, though the details are very uncertain and surreal, and I know there were some service providers hired. Just what the year was, I cannot say, for since then I have known many ages and dimensions, and have had all my notions of time dissolved and refashioned. It was by the light of the Datapad's touchscreen that I read. I recall the relentless shine of colors, and some chimes came every now and then from distant belfries. I seemed to keep track of those chimes with a peculiar intentness, as if I feared to hear some very remote, intruding note among them. Then came the first scratching and fumbling at the dormer window that looked out high above the other roofs of the city. It came as I chanted aloud the 9th verse of that primal lay, and I knew amidst my shudders what it meant. For he who passes the gateways always wins a shadow, and never again can he be alone. I had evoked, and the Datapad was indeed all I had suspected. That night, I passed the gateway to a vortex of twisted time and vision, and when morning found me in the attic room, I saw in the walls and shelves and fittings the winged mockery of science that I had never seen before. Nor could I ever after see the world as I had known it. Mixed with the present scene was always a little of the past and a little of the future, and every once familiar object loomed alien in the new perspective brought by my improved sight. From then on, I walked in a fantastic dream of unknown and half-known shapes, and with each new gateway crossed, the less plainly could I recognize the things of the narrow sphere to which I had so long been bound. What I saw about me none else saw, and I grew doubly silent and aloof, lest I be thought mad. Dogs had a fear of me, for they felt the outside shadow that never left my side. But still, I read more in hidden, forgotten chats and forums to which my Datapad led me, and pushed through fresh gateways of space and being and life patterns toward the core of the unknown cosmos. I remember the night I made the 5 concentric circles of fire on the floor and stood in the innermost one, chanting that monstrous litany the ephemeral messenger from Aleph had brought. The walls melted away, and I was swept by a dark wind through gulfs of fathomless gray, with the needle-like pinnacles of unknown mountains miles below me. After a while, there was utter blackness, and then the light of myriad stars forming strange, alien constellations. Finally, I saw a green-lit plain far below me, and discerned on it the twisted towers of a city built in no fashion I had ever known, or read of, or dreamed of. As I floated closer to that city, I saw a great square building of stone in an open space, and felt a hideous fear clutching at me. I screamed and struggled, and after a blankness, was again in my attic room, sprawled flat over the 5 phosphorescent circles on the floor. In that night's wandering, there was no more of strangeness than in many a former night's wandering. But there was more terror, because I knew I was closer to those outside gulfs and worlds than I had ever been before. Thereafter, I was more cautious with my rituals, for I had no wish to be cut off from my body and from the earth in unknown abysses from which I could never return. Yet, that accursed Datapad, that evil Datapad, had tempted me into opening a gate. My selfish zeal for mastering secret powers beyond the scientific truth hammered into our students' brains at Miskatonic University had made me the fool, allowing alien forces access into the reality we know as planet Earth. I understand how obviously my nerves are wrecked by my experiences, and how striding through the city might also have gotten me infected with one of the rampant diseases, as we know them from attics and the poorer city parts. And still, I could swear that feeling of dread, that feeling of a malevolent stalker, heralds my doom. I have made myself into a witness to forces that do not make converts. I am the disposable fool who served his purpose and now finds himself alone and barely able to handle the aftermath. But I will not falter. I got myself a powerful taser pistol and went through a weekend course of quick drawing and shooting it. Spare batteries and reload blocks were stuffed into my pants and my coats, so as to always be ready for more than one shot. I also used the daytime to visit courses for boxing, wrestling, and mixed martial arts at the local college. While that stalking shadow is a threat to watch out for, I also feel a temptation to take some students along on one of my ventures, as I would love to have science on my side, and I also crave the companionship and the chance to get paid for my discoveries. From the report of Marvin Taffer, a private investigator, Arkham, Massachusetts, November 2023. Kyle Rice is dead, but the police certainly did a cover-up of the real occurrence. Supposedly killed in another tragic mugging or robbery, my investigation of the crime scene nonetheless discovered contradictory evidence. The public version was streamlined. If the photos I have taken and the conclusions I have made after discussing those with the coroner are legit, then Kyle Rice was attacked by an assailant of impressive physical prowess. And at that, an assailant capable of clawing into the shoulders of a grown adult, uplifting the struggling person into the air, and smacking him against the walls of houses along the alley. It was a slaughter, not a killing. What my colleagues mockingly call the case of the nightmare bat is indeed in line with the guidelines for occult investigations, in contrast to regular homicide investigations. As the mayor's office already put a proverbial lid on the truth of this, I will discreetly inform Miskatonic University, as the diary of Kyle Rice may be true on the stalker or nightmare killer bat still being in the vicinity due to some form of access point we better get closed ASAP. I'm aware of being shadowed by now, but I know better ways of protecting myself, and I have ensured that my electric lantern and my mobile phone shine a secret sign of elder deities that was handed to us by professors from Miskatonic University, back when our detective agency was contracted to conduct occult investigations on demand. Copies of my report in detail have already been mailed to our agency and the Miskatonic University. Cloud upload. Finished.